hear me?
Yes, perfectly. How are you, Davide?
Good, and you?
Thanks. How do you like my mountain man outfit?
Fantastic. It remembers me, Wyoming.
We had a very good time.
Jackson Hole.
Jackson Hole was fantastic.
How are you doing?
I honestly had like a few days where like the altitude, like it took me a while to adjust because I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. Then I remember I just tried to go for a run, but literally after 20 meters, I had to sit down. The whole world was spinning.
Yeah.
I'm good, Davide. I'm in what everyone is calling the new normal.
Yeah.
I remember I came back from the UK, and I guess Singapore had hinted that they were probably going to close all the borders. So I was like, okay, I better go back. And then I did 14-day mandatory quarantine, which is I understand why anyway. But at least I was lucky enough to do the quarantine in my home, because the week afterwards you had to go to one of these hotels, which they don't disclose the location, but I'm pretty sure it's not like a Four Seasons or.
No, I don't think so. Or is 80,000 a week. One of the two.
Exactly. And then I was mentioning to the others on the call. After 14 days, I got out and basically found out that they was going to do a government lockdown the next day. So I had just enough time to go buy some groceries, buy some toilet paper, buy some hand sanitizer. Not much luck on the masks. There seems to be a global shortage of those, because when everything broke out in New York, I was trying to find even N95 masks to send to my friends in New York because it was so badly stricken. But yeah. So but now we're about 10 days, I think, into our 1 month lockdown, which anyway, it's for the best. It's important that everyone, we do our part and be responsible and, stay indoors. And anyway, there's so many interesting things to do indoors, such as discuss watches with amazing people like you, Davide.
Fantastic. So,
ladies and gentlemen, from the world of Revolution and possibly The Rake, if they are publishing, they probably will broadcast as well. I would like to introduce my friend, a dear friend actually, who I've known for over 3 brands actually, starting in Panerai. Then when he was heading up Tudor, then was the guy responsible for watches like the Black Bay, and really kind of I would say he's one of the fathers of that sort of vintage modern renaissance. The whole idea of taking sort of vintage codes of some of the most iconic watches and applying it, not replicating it, but applying it in a way that makes it really relevant to today's audience. And then from there, he transitioned to becoming the boss of Montblanc watches. Yeah, it's a pleasure to see you, Davide. I take it you must be in Geneva?
Yes, I am. Home.
In your lovely apartment, which I've had some very beautiful meals cooked by your wonderful wife as well.
I hope we will be able to doing some again. It will be a good sign.
we have to. And I thought, well, the whole idea was, listen, none of the watch fairs are going to happen this year. Obviously Basel and SIHH and Time to Move and every conceivable fair is canceled. But, everyone still is now adjusting to their time at home, and they're looking to be inspired, right? They're looking to be uplifted. They were looking to be just, engaged. And there's nothing to me more engaging and more fun actually than talking about watches. And I thought, what better person to talk about with watches than you, Davide? So with no further ado, let's go through the new 2020 watches for Montblanc. Would that work for you?
Absolutely, with great pleasure. And thank you very much for this opportunity. Really a pleasure as always to share with you and to contribute, to inspire and to nurture passion for watches, even in such difficult times. So what we are presenting now is that we are now consistently building up since, I would say, 5 years on this reboost and refresh of our watch offer, really based and nurtured on the very strong power of the Minerva heritage and history. And this year, the big piece is once again on 1858, which has become really our seminal product line, somewhere the new face of the Montblanc watch identity, and very much inspired by the military Minerva pieces from the 30s and the 40s. And we continue to develop it, really focusing on what has become our hero product, which is the Geosphere. This very unique world timer with a very vintage look that has been very, very successful. We have now declined it in different ways, and when a good design is out there, you can easily decline it in different ways. Last year we did a version of the Geosphere, which was khaki green and full bronze, with this particular alloy of bronze, very strong and successful. And now we continue the exploration of continue the exploration of the mountain, but we go into ice caves and glaciers. And the inspiration here was really this beautiful bright blue color that the inside walls of an ice cave have, with these very bright and translucent tones of blue. And we got inspiration from these, and we got inspiration from outdoor and adventure to build up this blue, cold blue, I would say, version of it. So blue dial gradient, as always, very strong. All the superluminova element, the maps on the discs, the indexes, the ends, and even the cardinal signs that are on the ceramic insert of the bezel are in superluminova white, icy white, in such a way that all the look becomes very cold, very much tool watch. And it's very interesting because compared to the previous one, which were very much on the vintage side, this blue cold version goes more contemporary and is very much complementary compared to that. This tool wash look does not only come from color, but also from materials. We use here for the first time titanium. So the case is in full titanium grade 5, completely brushed, very light and very durable and resistant. And the bezel is in steel, polished steel. So the whole watch takes a fresher, younger, more contemporary look. As you can see here, we continue to propose it on this leather strap that we do in Italy, in Florence, by hand, with this sfumato treatment, so gradient treatment also on the color of the strap. But we also come with a new metal bracelet, which was really,
really cool.
Important for a sport line such 1858. And we came back with a very vintage design coming from the 50s with this bracelet, which is made with a mix of rice beads in the middle and with the flat link on the side. Very interesting vintage look, and also very comfortable to wear one. And making a bracelet is always a very difficult exercise of proportion, of weight, of wearability, of integration with the buckle, of integration with the case. I think here we found really a very good compromise and very good strong design. When you will be able of trying it on is really comfortable, and the fact that is done in two material, titanium and steel, because the rice beads are in polished steel like the bezel, and the lateral links are in brushed titanium, makes it very light and really comfortable to wear.
That is so cool.
And it's it really matches perfectly the vintage spirit of the 1858 product line. We present it in bicolor, bi-material on the blue version, and we also apply it in full steel to the steel version of the Geosphere, the black dial, wow. And also to the to other watches. Now we will retrofit, as we say, on all the other watches, and it will become the metal bracelet of 1858.
That's incredible. So you will be available to purchase on its own if you already have a Montblanc watch, correct?
Yes, absolutely. You will be able of purchasing this watch online as of now, and it will be in the boutiques as soon as the boutique open again.
And what are the lug widths of the bracelets that are offered?
Is 21 millimeter.
21 millimeters.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Actually, I need one.
And it's really comfortable to wear, and the proportion, the thickness, the integration with the case, the folding clasp are really comfortable to wear. Very happy of what we did here.
I was lucky enough to test out a little bit the prototypes of these bracelets when I met with you in London. I have to say they're absolutely fantastic. I love how you are always sort of in the zeitgeist of where things are headed in terms of watches. And I know that for you and me and for a lot of our collectors friends, they were very much chasing after these Geosphere bracelets from the 50s and the 60s. And for you to come and create one, but to create it with like a modern material like titanium mixed with steel is incredible. And it really shows that, first of all, you know exactly where collectors' heads are headed and their hearts are headed, but also you're capable of bringing something a little additional to it as well. And that bracelet is absolutely phenomenal. I love the fact that you mix polished steel for the beads of rice, and then to have the lateral links, as you call them, in titanium. I think the Geosphere is one of those watches that also begs like a second look. And people, you know, a lot of times they look at it, but they miss a lot of the nuances of the Geosphere. So the Geosphere is like, to me, just such a cool watch. It's basically a second time zone watch, or you could even say if your eyes are very sharp, it can be sharp, and you have a good understanding of geography, it can be a world time watch, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is definitely.
And what I love about it is you have a depiction of the Earth's northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere on the dial at 12 and 6 o'clock. And then across of that, you have the longitude lines, sort of fixed longitude lines. Here, I think you've got them in blue superluminova, if I'm not mistaken, right? Exactly. And these kind of float over this depiction of all the different continents. And on the continents, in addition, because you're inspired by the 7 summits, you've actually put a little blue dot on each of the summits, the highest peak in each of these continents, which incidentally, if you're a mountaineering guy, the whole idea of the 7 Summit Challenge is that you have to, not 7 Summit, summit, if you ever want to summit the 7 summits, you would have to climb each one of these. And then I think you kind of reached a level of sort of elite mountaineering that very few people have attained.
Exactly. And we have chosen the Reinhold Messner one, which actually fantastic myth of hiking, Italian alpinist, and is actually the most difficult one, really the most challenging one.
Wow. And what's cool about this is, again, if you have a good understanding of geography, you can basically understand what time it is in every continent in the world. So it really is both an amazing artistic depiction of the world and its rotation and understanding where each of the cities are relative to their time. And it's also cool as well because it wouldn't have made sense if you had both the north and the southern hemisphere rotating in the same direction. So what's amazing about this watch is that they actually rotate in opposite directions in the way that they should, right? So I think you've got the northern hemisphere rotating counterclockwise and the southern hemisphere rotating clockwise. And that's something that unless you take this watch and play with it, you'll never understand. It is such a brilliant, artistic, but also pragmatic and logical interpretation of world time and second time zone, right? And it's, to me, this is exactly, a lot of people often say like, but why would you need a world time watch? It doesn't correct for like, for example, daylight savings time, or why would you need a second time zone watch when you have an iPhone? Well, it's exactly this. When you are able to transform something that is pragmatic into an art form, which I think this certainly is, that is exactly the reason for having a world time watch. So bravo on that, man.
Thank you very much. And a really good description of the watch. And as you can see in the zoom image, around the northern and southern hemisphere, you have the time zones and you have the night zones and the day zones. So you have a very, very easy readability of those different time zones. I would add a very interesting point on good design. And this is about luminous material and the look of luminous material into darkness. This is is a dimension of design that is so much inexploited in watchmaking and thus so much powerful. I'm absolutely hypnotized by what the car industry is doing on that with what they call the light signature. So now the light blocks of cars of each brand have a specific signature that is done by lights. And this allows you to really recognize and reconnect even on that dimension. And is exactly what we did here. As you can see at night or in dark condition, you have a beautiful view of the map, of the hands, of the indexes, on the numerals, and also of the cardinal signs. And this gives such a powerful experience, emotional experience with your watch when you're using it in dark condition, the way in which it's glowing. And to push this really further, normally the luminous material that you use on the previous one with a green emission, and here we use a blue emission to match the feeling of the color even at night. So the watch is wonderfully blue in light, but is also blue when it glows into darkness.
I love that, Davide. It's such a cool thing that you borrow this concept of a light signature, which when you look at the LED taillights or sort of running lights of these cars today, it really is kind of like, it defines its silhouette in the darkness. I think the other thing that's really important and that's really nice about this watch also is, so anywhere you see the hours of darkness, so in the Southern Hemisphere, it's from, you know, the top half of the globe, and in the Northern Hemisphere, it's in the bottom half of the globe. That's the part of the world or of the Earth that's facing away from the sun, and the part that lit is the part that's turned towards the sun. I think now more than ever, we need to understand also that we're all on the same planet. Right?
Exactly. Absolutely.
It's one world, guys, right? So it doesn't matter if, you know, people are suffering in one part of the world and maybe they're suffering less in the other part of the world. We're all united and we need to help everyone. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe from here, let's go back to the split second, because that also is an absolute rock star piece, because I think it's such a beautifully executed watch as well. I love this sort of combination of this snail type tachymetric scale in the center of the watch combined with the telemeter. Oh yeah, this is the inspiration.
This is the original one, yeah.
This is a watch from the
1935, yeah.
1935, absolutely stunning. And how cool is it that, you know, this is something that, wow, and it's luminous with cathedral hands and with Arabic indexes and pointed baton markers as well. And then let's look at the contemporary watch that's been launched for this year. That's cool. Absolutely.
Exactly. So the split second has been a long development in terms of movement, and it's really a beautifully executed and decorated movement, as always, all by hand in Villeret, in our Minerva style build-up of movement. Very complex movement, actually the most complicated chronograph execution. It was very successful. Like last year, the very first version that we presented, that was the bronze one with the black dial. And we already understood that the watch was really powerful. So last year we did a number of very nice animation, let's say, through the year. We did a special edition in October linked to the CIAR, the High Watchmaking Fair in Mexico, a limited edition of 8 pieces in bronze, but with a green nephrite jade dial and some red accents getting the colors of a Mexico flagship. And we did for Only Watch a very special LE1 with a blue agate dial. And now we come with a new version, completely new, in the sense that the case is in full titanium to match, and it really gets into the blue capsule of 1858, and it really goes together with the Geosphere. The inspiration was the same, these ice caves and glaciers. And what we did here is that for the first time in recent year, we use again enamel grand feu dial.
Wow.
So, which really pays back to the early years of Minerva, when almost all the dials of all the counters and stopwatches were done in enamel grand feu, which allow us today of being able of enjoying these beautiful dials 100 years later in pristine condition, not with a single wrinkle. So those are dials that are made to last forever. And also, we don't see so well here in the picture, but enamel gives a very, very bright, rich dial, very luminous. It catches the sun in an incredible way. And when it is in full light, it really looks like if there is a light behind the dial. Beautiful, beautiful blue dial, small orange accent as you can see, alligator blue strap matching, and the beautiful Minerva 16 lines, the 1631 split second rattrapante monopusher chronograph.
Amazing, and I love the fact that you've combined one of the world's oldest materials, which is enamel, Golfo enamel, with one of the world's most modern materials, which is grade 5 titanium as well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now, Davide, let me ask you a question. You know, I love the watches from this year, but I also noticed that they are kind of a departure from kind of the very vintagey themed watches that we've seen in the past. Is this something that you're moving a little bit away from? Because, you know, of course, I know you introduced this back in the day with the Black Bay, and now we've had probably about 10 years of this. And
10 years exactly.
You know what I mean? And maybe we've had almost like a bit too much of it, you know, because everyone has kind of jumped on this bandwagon. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely.
There's even a slightly derogatory, although they shouldn't use it, term for like colored luminova called Fotina. You know?
Exactly.
So
exactly.
would you say that the era of this is a bit over and we need to kind of move back to do our own thing, or?
As always, you need to do both to nurture a brand. You need to be able of capturing this, the true spirit of the origin of the myth of the brand, and really being able of getting the grammar of the early days of a brand, to be able to reinforce and ignite it with a strong identity. But then you need to be able of balancing it also with more modern contemporary execution, with more modern material, hence this double expression. And this is very visible in this year 1858 offer, because we have the watches that we just described, which are more contemporary, for sure. But then we also present a few other watches, like the affordable chronomono pusher and the 24-hour automatic movement, that are more into the vintage and the vintagey spirit. So
yes,
you really need to be able of balancing these two component of a brand, to be able of nurturing it and giving meaning.
Let's just finish off the 1858 watches. If I'm not mistaken, there's both an automatic chronograph with a beautiful blue dial and an automatic watch as well. Let's just take a quick look at those, because they're pretty cool.
Yes, those. So the Geosphere will be available in our boutique very quickly. It is already in some boutique. Those two watches, the chronograph and the automatic, will come a little bit later on in September. And what we have done here is that because the Geosphere is so powerful, and because this birotatable bezel in ceramic with this cardinal sign, that, by the way, you can use as a compass, is so strong for the identity of the watch, we decided to enhance, to enrich also the chronograph and the automatic with the same feature. So we have redesigned the chronograph automatic, adding a birotatable bezel with a ceramic insert, that is the one that we see on the screen now. And then we have redesigned also our automatic watch with the same bezel, a little bit thinner, to be proportioned, because the chrono is 42 millimeter and the automatic is 40 millimeter, is slightly smaller. And on the automatic, the bezel is fixed.
Oh, no, automatic, the bezel's fixed. Okay, and it's nice also to be able to give people the possibility to have an accessibly priced watch, but that, that doesn't cost a fortune, but has all the kind of cool character that you've created in the bigger pieces.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So the bezel here is fixed.
So here we are slightly below 2,500 euros.
Right.
The chronograph is just over 4,000, and the Geosphere is 5,600 euros.
Right. Cool.
On leather.
Okay, so let's go from here to the Heritage Collection.
Yeah.
And again, two of my favorite watches, a pulsograph and also a mono pusher chronograph. I know the pulsograph is featuring a Minerva movement, your beautiful movement with the massive balance wheel vibrating at 18,000 vibrations per hour with the Philips overcoil. And then the Salmon dial watch is an automatic chronograph that is kind of inspired by the spirit of the Minerva watch, but at a much more accessible price. So maybe let's start with the pulsograph.
Absolutely. For us, Heritage is really our rakish collection, product line. The pulsograph was very successful last year, and the line overall. We used Pink Salmon for the Pulso last year, and we come this year with a very interesting combination. We work a lot on dials, and we have found here a very special gradient of chocolate brown that we call burnt caramel, darker on the edges and lighter in the middle, with a very particular lacquer, which is called the laqué tendu, tense lacquer, which gives an incredible level of depth and of brightness to the dial. And here is very interesting because the dial has a double finishing. The part behind the numerals and the indexes is grené, so is matte. And the center of the dial and the lateral part of the dial is sun ray. So this contrast between parts that are very shiny and parts that are very matte gives a lot of richness to the dial. And what we have done here is that compared to the previous one, we have modified the numerals, the 12 and the 6, and the indexes by dots, putting Superluminova inside, which really works well because it gives perfect visibility and is a very good example, as you were quoting before, between this blend between past and vintage code and more contemporary ones. We match it with the full pink gold case and a tobacco gradient sfumato dial strap, sorry, alligator strap. And then we have coated our 13 lines chronograph monopusher in pink gold in such a way that when you flip the watch, exactly, you have the beautiful finishing of all the bridges with the Côte de Genève that perfectly matches the color of the case. The watch is 40 millimeters, so it's very small, quite thin, very wearable, limited edition, 100 pieces, and numbered as always.
I love the
36,000 euros.
That's amazing. And I love also the fact that, you know, you mentioned the sunray finish in the center of the dial, then you mentioned the sort of Grené, sort of chapter ring behind the indexes. But then on top of that, in the pulsograph scale, you have a circular finish as well, circular brushing, if I'm not mistaken. And then inside of the two counters, you've got a circular sort of Geosphere as well. So you've got actually 4 different sort of finishings on this one dial, which is absolutely spectacular. I love it. And it's one of those watches, like the more detail that you recognize. It's one of those watches where you can smoke a cigar, drink a Negroni, and just kind of spend your alone time. Maybe you and your dog can kind of just look at your watch, and then you
Absolutely, and it makes me think about someone. And on the minute counter on the right, it's very interesting. Where you are speaking about details, you see that each 3 minutes there is a longer line on the scale. And really, this comes from the original Minerva dials, and it was linked to international phone calls, where after 3 minutes you needed to put again a coin if you wanted to continue the discussion. And this is one of those very nice, small but beautiful details that make watchmaking so interesting and so incredible.
It's fantastic. You know, I have a chronograph with a pulse meter on it. And I actually use it, you know. So what you do is it says graduated for 30 pulsations. They also come in 15, but I guess 30 is a little bit more accurate. You start with the first beat of your pulse, and then you start the chronograph, and then you count 30 pulses, and then you stop your chronograph, and that scale will tell you what your heart rate is. And I actually like to do it while I'm drinking to see if my heart rate starts to slow down. And if there's a difference between my first Negroni and say my 4th Negroni, usually it's quite effective. And when I hit a certain pulse rate, I know it's time to go to bed.
Exactly.
Fabulous. Okay, so let's go from this amazing watch, and again, 40 mm, beautiful size, to the beautiful salmon dial mono pusher.
Yes. So here is something very interesting because we have been working so much on chronograph monopusher linked to Minerva because it's really one of the signature of for which Minerva stands for. And we have found the way of bringing down this beautiful complication to a wider audience with a special collaboration with Celita and with this movement for which we have exclusivity for a number of years. So we are able of introducing, we were able because we launched last year, this beautiful chronograph monopusher in 42 mil, very vintage with these oversized counters in steel for a price below 5,000, 4,700 euros. Right. And as we did last year, the pulsograph with the pink salmon dial, we now apply it also to these more affordable ones and with very nice details like the running second hands and the second and minute counter hands that are in blue. You have here dots and numerals which are in full metal. So you have on the outer scale a small dot of Superluminova, which is a very nice vintage detail. And yes, it shows how what you can do with good design, even for very affordable price points.
That's great, man. And you also have a beautiful Heritage Auto in yellow gold with a kind of British racing green dial. Am I correct?
Absolutely. We really, we like a lot to work with colors and textures. We've been one of the very first to bring back a green. So we continue to, we did it last year with the 1858 khaki green. We bring now into this Heritage product line with a very dark green execution, what we call vintage British green. And we match it with the yellow gold, which is a little bit of a forgotten material now, but here really brings back so much this feeling of the 50s and matches so well. And again, the beauty of the dial with this grené and soleil part with this particular lacquer brings a very strong look for the watch with a very dark color that in the sun shines in an incredible way. And again, full yellow gold case for 8,500 euros.
Wow, that's fabulous. Mm. So let's go from there to two watches in the Star Legacy family.
Yes. Star Legacy, it's one of our iconic lines in the classical part. Montblanc has been doing a different version of star lines in the last 21 years. And when we redesigned it 3 years ago, we really wanted to condense, to summarize a little bit all the identity signs and design cues of those different classical lines into a single one, really paying tribute again to the early days of Minerva, to the pocket watches and the early wrist watches. The key signs here are the center guilloche part of the dial with this exploding star guilloche that has been reworked to be really refined and subtle, with the star that is really subtly present on the dial, and then with the particular numerals here, the Roman numerals 1. We had for a number of years a line that was called 4810. We, in our process of simplifying our offer, we integrate it into Star Legacy, and we do it in 43 millimeter in a size that is slightly bigger of the existing 42 automatic and the 42 chrono, with a new design with these Roman numerals and with the two version. This is the anthracite gray and black version with Superluminova in leaf ends and in the Roman numerals. And this is the automatic one. It also exists a light dial color, which is I would say a light champagne with a little bit of this bicolor effect also on the light one, and with the gold Roman numerals.
It's such an inventive use of guilloche. It's really cool. Love it.
Yeah, exactly. So you have here a kind of very light champagne color that is applied on the guilloche, and white on the flange, blue hand for the running second, and a particular 3-link metal bracelet, steel bracelet here with the central link, which is brushed.
So how are you, Davide? Why don't we make a deal? If everything is completely fine by October, let's go meet in Mexico, and because it'll be like the last fair of the, oh, actually, I forgot to mention. So Nick Fowkes and I are thinking about doing a watch fair in London in November. And we're going to do it at Annabelle's. So if this is something I can talk to you guys about, you know, hopefully we can get one watch fair before the year ends. Exactly. I mean, we'll monitor the situation, but I'll send you the specifics if it could be something that you might be interested in. So basically, Richard Caring, who he owns like Annabelle's and Mark's Club, and you know, quite a few of the restaurants like Harry's Bar and so on. We will do it in between Annabelle's and Mark's Club, and then we'll do all of his restaurants. So every night will be a different event at one of those restaurants. So it could be quite cool, you know.
Fantastic.
Davide, thank you so much, man. It's been such a pleasure listening to you describe the new watches for 2020. It's been a great moment for me, and I hope for our audience as well. So thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Wade. Really a pleasure. And thank you for everybody for listening. Thank you.
Thank you.